Welcome to Hermit Woods, where there's a story in every bottle. Welcome. Monday, 5:30.
Another Monday.
The crew is all back together.
Monday.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Look at us.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Everybody's
Cheers
here.
to health and well-being and getting over the flu.
The flu, my
Flu.
God, that was a
I still wonder if I maybe
rough
should be sitting a
night.
little bit further away from you guys.
That's why you were. I kept telling you, put your chair closer.
I don't know, Bob. I don't know.
Where's your mask? You need your
Don't
mask
worry,
on.
another
Yeah.
foot isn't going to make any difference at all. Sorry. No, I think you're fine.
I think
I'm all good.
That was a long
So,
one.
It was a long haul.
Yeah.
And
No,
Yeah.
it's-
I still have residual cough.
yeah,
I wake up at like 3 a.m. coughing.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
but we're here.
All right,
We're
we're
all
here.
here.
And you're here. Thank you. And
Yeah.
lots of folks, a lot of our regulars
Yeah.
are here, I see.
Fantastic.
Lynn and Priscilla and Janice and Geraldine. Hi, Geraldine.
Kathy's
Jeff is
joined
here.
us.
Kathy's joined us.
Priscilla, Gary,
Gary
all
Parker.
the
So
all the
great.
regulars.
All the regulars, the party.
Excellent. Thank
It's time
you,
to start
guys.
the party. If there is anybody new to the game, just a couple reminders. If you have comments, please put them in the question section on Facebook or YouTube, and we will answer your comments on the air if we can get to them. And if we can't, we'll answer them after the show is over. And if you would make yourself known, if you're put your name in the comments, say hello, so we know that you're watching, and we love that. And if
Even if you're watching after, if you're not watching live, we'd still love to know who's watching. I think there's a big portion of our crowd that doesn't get a chance to watch live with us, but tunes in later on. So we'd love to know who those people are as well. So
Yeah,
even if you have
absolutely.
questions not live, we'll still go back and respond if we can. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you like what we're doing here, share this broadcast with your friends on Facebook or YouTube, and let them invite them to join the party. And we'll also we'd love it if you'd like the broadcast on Facebook so that we can get more recognition.
I like it, Bob.
You like it?
I
Thank you.
like the broadcast.
Excellent.
Did you tell
I'm
Facebook-
just asking you, like it if we liked it.
Did you tell Facebook that?
Yeah. Did you tell Facebook
Did I?
you like it?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I'm here. How could I tell Facebook?
Well, when you get home,
When you get home, yeah.
like
Go
it
like
Yeah.
go like it.
or
We'll do
no.
that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Later
figure it
like,
out.
present likes or later likes.
Where
are
would we be
appreciated.
if we didn't like our own broadcast?
It would be terrible if we didn't like our own
Wait a minute,
broadcast.
did you like it?
It's like voting, right?
Have you liked
vote?
it?
Did you
I have,
vote this morning?
absolutely.
Did
Yeah.
everybody vote today?
Did everybody vote today? Yes.
Yes, I
Guess
voted.
what?
I voted twice.
On multiple
There's-
devices.
I voted.
Oh, Barney's watching too. She
Oh, hi, Barney.
she
All right.
must be on YouTube.
Excellent.
Yeah, she's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Bonnie's a YouTuber.
Welcome, Bonnie. We have a new watcher. That's great. And yeah, on voting, we have 4 more days.
Oh,
You
getting
can
down the
vote
wire.
once a day. You can vote on every device once a day. We love your support. If you could get to it, that's great. I put the links on all of our pages. If you can't find a link to vote for us, then you must not be on social media, because I have so many out there on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, my page, and just about everywhere. So thank you for your help. I know a lot of you have been out there voting for us, and we really, really appreciate it. But it's up on Friday, I think the 8th. It's Friday the 8th.
When will we know the results?
It's
Not
gonna
till
be a couple
June, I
months.
think, yeah.
Couple months.
Couple months.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's push.
Push. It's the final push.
Okay.
The best live music venue in the Lakes region, right here, right?
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
I hope
It's right,
so.
it's right
That
behind
would
us.
be great. And actually, I can let you know, we are now very close to booking the entire summer, starting May 19th, all the way through to the end of August for our listening room series.
Is that every week?
Every Thursday from the end of May
Oh my
all the way to the end of
goodness.
August, there will be a live show
Wow.
here in our listening room in the loft. And I hope some of you will be able to make some of those shows.
So we won't be
We're-
taking it kind of slowly and growing into it.
We
and
won't
making
be.
sure.
No,
We're just
we
gonna
had
hit it.
We had a great conversation with our music vendors and bookers, and we're gonna go.
Good.
Super
Fantastic.
excited. Yeah.
Excellent.
So starting May 19th, we'll give you more information about that soon. Who's going to be playing, and there'll be opportunities to get tickets and be part of that.
Are you going to be the MC?
I am.
You are. Are you going to dress up like
Scary.
He loves having a
they
microphone
do
in
they do down in New York? at the
Probably
Mintons?
not. But
No.
No. But there is this thing.
I can see him
dancing around like that. Oh, I would
I learned something.
I learned for that.
No, absolutely. If any of you saw the Facebook post I did on that, you know
Oh
what
my
I'm talking
goodness.
about. What Chuck's talking about.
He took over the whole room, the whole
yeah.
space.
Yeah. No, well,
when he showed up.
There is something weird that happens when somebody puts a microphone in my hands.
Well, I know.
You like to
That's what
talk.
we're
It's
saying.
just,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like transformation. So it's a good thing. I think I'm going to be good at it, but I don't know. We'll see. You guys will tell me for sure.
I want to see what dress you choose.
That's right. I know. Gerald,
What dress I
lock your closet. Don't let him in your closet before the show.
Doesn't matter. Geraldine's half my size. I don't think it's worry.
That's even worse. That's even worse. Okay, that's almost.
that was
I almost.
very
I
bad
almost-
visual.
I almost.
All right,
no,
thank
no,
you.
no,
All right, guys.
The visual.
No, I cut it off.
Oh, we're
No.
gonna
Ken,
talk
what do we
about
have
wine.
in our
We're supposed to be
glasses?
talking about wine right now.
Let's walk it back a little bit. All right.
Thank
What
you,
do we have?
Marika. Thank you.
So, I have
What are
been
we
working.
talking about today?
So I've been
Oh, really?
working
Yeah, good question.
with barrels all over.
I know there were like
lots of
12
barrels.
barrels on the floor
We
of
just
the wine.
got back from the EWE and we looked at barrels and talked about barrels.
Yeah.
We had a visitor from Stoneface, the head brewer. We talked about barrels.
Barrels.
And
Fooders.
this time of year, there's all sorts of barrel activity going on downstairs. So I thought it would be a nice opportunity for you guys, especially because you haven't tried some of these wines that I have for you to try today. Others, everybody's had an opportunity to try, and we're going to talk about that. But what I want to do is to illustrate through the liquid itself, through the wine, to show you how barrels affect a wine, how they change it, how that is the spice cabinet to work with, how it affects the character, the structure of the wine. And you tell by your own taste. Maybe it doesn't taste any different to you. Maybe it tastes a lot different to you. But so we have the exact same wines where part of it's been in a stainless steel tank, part of it's been in a barrel. And I have one from just 2 months in the barrel, 5 months in the barrel, and 11 months in the barrel.
Wow.
Different wines.
This is going to be
So
fun.
you get a chance to try them all. And then out here, we have two sets of very popular wines. One is the 3 Honey and the 3 Honey Gold. So that's our mead. The 3 Honey one, which is in your glass to the left,
Yeah, that's what we
was
toasted with.
just put up. This is a 2021 vintage.
Okay.
This is local, raw, unfiltered wildflower honey from Troy Hall over in the Connecticut River Valley. And that's simply added to some water and some yeast and it ferments. And so it's just a straight, it's called a show mead when you don't adulterate it with any other spices or fruit or anything like that. This is just honey, water, and yeast. That's it.
It's a really nice mead.
I love that. And this is young too. I can't wait to see how this mellows out and matures.
I almost get a spiciness. Do you get a spiciness on it? Where's
I
that
also
coming from?
get mint. I get a lot of mint, and I get like a cayenne pepper or white pepper.
Yeah, I get
it.
my pepper.
And
Has
there's this incredible sort of mouthfeel, this texture to it.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know where that came from, but I love it. That's really
Well, honestly, the honeys that go into this are going to be different every
They're
year.
different every
right? It depends on where the bees collect the nectar from and which hives that you get your honey from. So Mother Nature's going to have a big say in what this tastes like every year.
No, I think we should probably ask the expert, not that one, but Geraldine, has she had the newest vintage of this yet?
Oh, of course she has.
So she is the expert, yeah.
I was
So
gonna say,
Geraldine,
more
hoping
Geraldine.
Geraldine likes this.
How is it?
Well,
Does it hold
if
up?
there's any sign, I brought a case home for her before I left.
That's good. It's when you
I
do
don't know
a
if
case of
there's any
weed,
left.
that's when I know it's
Yeah.
really
Well,
down there.
I
Honestly,
think she likes it.
single serving bottle. I
They are.
mean,
Yep.
really,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really half of what one needs.
They do fit in a glass.
Really
It's a
good.
good point.
Yeah. So.
This is a 450 milliliter glass, and that's a 375 milliliter bottle.
Right.
They fit in the
This is
glass.
a one glass
It's
bottle.
a single serving.
You see those they advertise those wine glasses that you can get that are a full bottle of wine, and you expect it to be this.
It's not that big.
It's not really that big.
Right.
Okay.
No.
Our red glass is 7 ounces short of a full bottle. That
Really,
glass, right?
that's what these
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
7 ounces short. So this is 19 ounces.
Well, that's
Yeah.
19.
So this will hold all but 7 ounces
Maybe
of a full
yeah.
bottle.
Wow.
So Ken, before we get into comparing these, maybe just educate us a little bit. And I talk a lot about this when I present on Saturdays and when we do tours and things. But we talk. Let's just go back a little bit, especially for folks who haven't heard us before. But
The basics of barrels?
the basics of barrels. You know, barrels. People think of barrels as a storage device, and quite frankly, they're horrible storage devices for the modern winery. Stainless steel is much more economical in space and size and ease of getting wine in and out of and everything else.
Right.
So as a storage device, a barrel is not a good thing.
Right.
Yet
But if
we
you
use
were
them.
back in the day and you had a ship and cheap labor and lots of wood, you made barrels. You put stuff in barrels.
Exactly. You know, 300 years ago, the only way to create a container that would be durable enough
Yeah.
and capable of storing wine in the manner that they stored it back then, the barrel was really the only way to store wine in the 1800s and before. And also, like you said, if you want a barrel weighs with liquid in it 500 pounds, a standard barrel. Because
But
of the
they're-
shape of the barrel, you can roll it onto a ship.
Yeah.
One person could
Right.
roll it onto a ship. So yes, 200 or 300 years ago, the barrel was darn near the best storage device that you could possibly put wine in. But today, that's not the case yet. Wineries all over America are putting millions of gallons of wine in barrels. Why are they doing
So it's still the best vessel for a particular product that you want to create. And no one's been able to work their way around that. So barrels, typical wine barrels are in the range of 225 liters, about 60 gallons. And that size, you have the nice ratio between the amount of liquid in there and the surface area of the barrel. A larger barrel, you have more liquid to the surface area. A smaller barrel, you have just a little liquid with a lot of oak around it. So a small barrel, you end up with a whole bunch of oak flavor without getting the benefits of the breathing that a barrel does. A huge barrel, you get to store it with some breathing without getting any oak influence to it. And wineries, especially in Europe, still have these gigantic barriques and foeders that hold vast volumes of liquid in wood. But for nuancing wines within a reasonable amount of time, a year or two, typically with red wines, California red wines, so Cabernet, Merlot, they go into barrels for a year, year and a half, 2 years. And in that amount of time, right after they're done fermenting, they can pick up the flavor from the barrel, and they can also absorb the oxygen that the barrel gives to them. And that process builds structure, mouthfeel, stability. It's sort of counterintuitive, but by adding a little bit of oxygen slowly through a barrel, you end up with a wine that's much more resistive to getting oxidated later on. So some wines that spend a year or two in barrel, later on you can pull the cork on them, have it on the table, put the cork back in, leave it there for 2, 3, 4 days, and still pour it, and it's fine. And it's that early introduction of oxygen that's made it more resistive to oxygen later on, which is kind of weird. You figure that it can only take a certain amount of oxygen in its life. And if you've already given it a bunch, it doesn't have much more to take, but it doesn't work that way.
So is also the different types of wood that barrels are made out of.
Yeah, so now the barrel, so barrels are still used today, and they're highly coveted and they're quite expensive to nuance and create very pleasing mouthfeels and flavors. So some of the boutique wineries out in California are getting thousands of dollars for a bottle of Cabernet. And that went into a very special oak barrel for a certain amount of time, and it creates that perfect little nuanced flavor to it. And now
you can buy barrels. I mean, that oak is, you can have American oak, Hungarian oak, French oak, and now even some barrel producers are experimenting with maple
pecan wood and maple and doing different things.
So those are variables in
Right.
flavor, more ways in which a barrel can offer different flavors.
Absolutely. And that's really driven, I think, by marketing, by consumers. They're looking for that wine with a little twist. Well, let's take a Merlot and put it in a bourbon barrel. Or let's take it and put it in something with different toasts.
Sure.
And you get different flavors.
The marketing is driving the interest in experimenting and exploring the different styles. But the point being, though, that you can make different flavors in wine by using different types of wood. An American wood is going to give off different flavors than a French wood.
Right.
And also
Hungarian.
it's going to treat the oxidation differently, because as you pointed out, American oak tends to be a little bit more porous, and French oak is a little tighter grained.
Well,
So there's
Chuck here can give us the details on Quercus
Alba.
and Quercus.
That's right. You have a
I don't
forestry
know
major.
what the French oak is.
Is he really?
It's a white oak. Maybe it's Quercus albus, but it's just a different subspecies or something like that.
But
It's still both white oak.
They grow differently in France than they do in Wisconsin.
Isn't it climate
they
also?
do.
The white oak.
Well, yeah, there's
No, it's a
evolutionary.
different. It's a different species.
It's a different
right?
species. Yeah, it's not
Of the
Quercus
same
albus.
tree.
Yeah, right.
And it moves the sap differently through it, so that the grain is different. French oak grain is different than American oak grain. They breathe less and they give less flavor than an American oak.
French does, yeah.
And-
Right.
And also the weather. I mean, the grain of the oak is
Well,
going to be
they're
different,
actually a
colder
lot
or-
further north, climate-wise, too, in Europe.
France?
Yeah, than they are in a lot of places here. I mean,
Because a lot of the oak here is coming from down south.
well,
Georgia.
it grows really well. Yeah, we're at probably the northern end of its range.
Right.
So it grows fast and
They grow
has
faster.
a looser
Yeah.
grain.
Well, it depends. I mean, my table at my house is white oak, and I mean it is so finely grained. It's just phenomenal. And so that means it's a very slow growing tree. We have red oaks and white oaks here in New Hampshire, and the red oaks grow probably twice as fast. But the difference is why we can't make barrels out of red oak, because it's a beautiful wood, is that it has literally, you can take one end of a board and blow through it. It has its vascular,
So porous.
it's porous, its vascular system has where all the sap goes up, just like any other tree.
Yeah.
The sap goes up and goes down to store
They're
sugars.
tubes, they're straws.
There's straws through the whole thing. So if you built the barrels out of red oak, you might get
Just
great
bleed.
flavor. You'd get really oxygenated, and then your barrel would be empty. Whereas the white oak develops what they call tyloses, which are little occlusions in those rays, and it stops.
And it blocks.
And it blocks all the vascular rays in it.
I do know that most of the barrels that you get from France are from 200-year-old trees. So it takes a tree that long to be big enough to get good, smooth
no
grain
knots.
staves, no knots, nothing like that.
Right.
And then those planks are cut and air dried for 2 to 3 years
Oh, wow.
before the cooper ever starts to do their magic with bending and shaping and lining these things up. A barrel is not glued together. It's not nailed together. It's shaped and then restricted by these metal bands that prevent it from springing back out. And I remember the first time buying a barrel, and it shows up dry, and you put water into it, and the leaks.
It leaks out,
the water
yeah.
just pours out of the
it's like
crack.
a
You're
wooden
like, I
boat.
just spent all this money for something that's going to leak.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you just wait, and it swells up, and it swells up tight, and then
It's just like a wooden boat. You leave a wooden boat out of the water for. We talked about the sacrifice of a 200-year-old tree to make a French oak barrel. One of the things that's really cool about what we're doing here is all of our barrels, I think at this point, are recoopered barrels. So they're French oak barrels that killed a tree for somebody else's winery a long time ago. And we then get that barrel reamed out, exposing new wood and giving us the benefits of a new barrel without killing an oak tree. And of course, it's also more economical.
Yeah,
So-
I found out too that I can get barrels that have not been recoopered, but they can be reused.
Right.
So that's another way where you don't have to take them apart, don't have to ream them out, you don't have to have potential issues from doing that. You can get a barrel that's been microscopically evaluated so that it's clean, and then put in some wine into it. So I may go that route as well.
And one other thing we haven't talked about yet is the toasting of a barrel. That another
We have a lot of wine to drink, just so
range.
you know.
Yeah, so we're going to get drinking because.
Okay.
But I wanted to make sure if we're going to talk about barrels, these are the things that
Need
make,
The background.
make the wine
Yeah.
different. So toasting of the barrel is the burning of the inside of the wood at different levels, either a light toast, a medium toast, heavy toast, or variations in between that. And the different toast levels make the oak character either more or less accessible, and also offer some toasty notes, if you will,
Right.
some of that burn character to
Right.
the wine.
Right, a light toast, you might get sort of almond notes or vanilla notes, and then a heavy medium plus toast, you may get espresso notes or toffee notes or
Right.
coffee notes. So you get, just like toast, you put toast bread into the toaster and you cook it up and you get different flavors. When you get it to where it's charred black, it's
Not that
Got it.
flavorful anymore.
They don't do much of that though in wine. So, but if you
they
had a
don't mind,
bourbon
but
barrel,
at bourbon, they
Yeah.
char the inside.
Yeah, and that
because
changes the
there they
chemistry
want
a
that
lot.
whole charcoal carbon filtering
Yeah.
activity to clean up
Yeah.
the
Right.
the harsh oils and alcohols that are in them.
So with that being said,
so
barrels
that's-
offer dozens and dozens of different ways that you can choose to
Right.
affect the finish of your wine. And in this case, we're going to affect the finish of what? So what barrel did these go into?
So the one on your right is the 3 Honey Gold, and that was in a barrel that previously had. I'm getting confused. I believe this previously had elderberry. So the barrel that had elderberry in it.
Really?
It's either
I
that
wouldn't know it from the
or
taste.
black raspberry. The current 3 Honey Gold that I have in barrel right now was in barrels that had red scare in it.
So yet another way in which a barrel can contribute flavor to the wine. Whatever
Yeah.
was in the barrel before also adds something to what goes into it next. And to be clear, barrels are cleaned thoroughly between uses, but anything that goes into a barrel is going to leave something in the pores of the wood. And you're going to get that.
Totally different flavor, right?
Yeah.
You lose kind of this very nice, delicate floral honey note of the 3 Honey wine. That's that spicy honeycomb, sort of classic honey thing into something else. That disappears in the 3 Honey Gold, but you build this different flavor profile.
And you get the wood on the. I get the woody, earthy character off the nose. It's much
Yeah.
drier. It's not as floral as like you said. The floralness goes from the nose as well.
Yeah.
But I like that though. I mean, I like the.
That's, they're different. It's like in the current wine world, coming out of California, and it's especially true 10 years ago, less so now, people would ask for an oaked Chardonnay or an unoaked Chardonnay because they were two completely different wines and people would favor one or the other.
Yeah.
And there's a case again where it's a grape, a white wine, and the effects of how they craft that wine in the barrel or not is really apparent in the glass. And I like that with the 3 Honey because it's a very light wine, so it makes a touch of oak stand out. It's a little more difficult to find in some red wines than it is white wines. So that's why we started here. Now we're gonna push the envelope with the next wines.
I think you shared with us a article on Chardonnay that Ray Isle wrote that was outstanding. And it really,
Wasn't that great?
Yeah, it really helped me
I love the way he
understand
writes.
Chardonnay better than I ever had before. So we'll post that article as a link to the show, so that if anybody else wants to read it, it's a really, really great story.
If you don't want to drink all
Is
your
it
wine, just
A
toss it into
2017
there.
article in Food and Wine magazine.
I don't know if it's 20. I thought it was recent. No, that's not it. It came out in the last few weeks.
Okay,
He's
I'll let you
posted
find
on
it.
Facebook. Yeah.
I'll let you find it and share it on here.
So what I'd suggest you do is just pour a little bit in your left glass. Left glasses will be the tank versions. So get rid of what you have in there, pour a little bit of this wine in, swirl it around, toss it, and then
We can
pour a little
use
bit more.
Dump bucket over there.
What was that?
A dump bucket.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Grab one of those.
Extra glass.
You could find that article
Yep.
on here under Ken.
And then this will be for the right. The right one will be the barrel sample. We're going to start with the very subtle influence. This is only a 2-month
There's another.
difference.
Oh wait, he sent it to me and. Sorry, Ken. I'll be right with you.
What happened?
I was going to show Marika that article.
That's not it.
Oh,
Oh, maybe not. Well,
We'll
I'll post
find it later, yeah.
Yep, sorry. So what am I doing here? I'm going to rinse my glass.
so you rinse
Yep.
your glass.
So this is stainless. It goes in your stainless glass.
And rinse first.
What I find too that's helps for me understanding the influence of oak on a wine is after I've finished a wine and I go back to the empty glass, it just has a drip in it. That's when I can notice a lot of the aromatics of the oak that stand out in the empty glass afterwards.
Yeah. I get that.
So this is the most recent vintage of Lake House Red. This is the 2021 Lake House Red. It won't be available for a couple of years. It was crafted last fall, and then it was finally blended in February. So I finally had all the pieces done and the time and bandwidth to finally blend it up the way it should be. It's 4 different fruits: blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, and elderberries. And then a portion of it, the bulk of it, went into barrels. And so you have part of it on the right, which is the barrel sample, and part of it on the left, which is the portion that's in a tank. So 2 things here. You're going to have a very young Beaujolais-like wine. So it's very fruity, very forward.
Got a great nose.
Very, to me, disjointed, but it's young. This is what a young wine can be like. Sometimes they can have a sulfur note. Sometimes wines, through the process of fermentation, will leave some residual sugar, sulfur in the aroma. This one doesn't have it right now. So see if you can. There's only 2 months. This has only been in the barrel for 2 months. So see if you detect any difference. There might not be.
I don't detect any on the nose.
Bob, can you reach to hold your wines up to the camera a little bit?
Yeah. Switch to this camera.
Oh, well, it's not an option.
Oh, it's not an option. What do I? Oh, that's right. We did it a different way. I don't know if I can.
There isn't a vast difference in color. Of course, Matt was asking. I'm not seeing as much difference in color as what we get later on.
I
It's
noticed
slightly darker.
this is slightly darker. The barrel aged one is slightly darker. If you hold it right up to the light, you can see the difference. The 2 of them together, you can see the difference. And I don't know why it would be darker, but it's definitely, especially after only 2 months.
I taste more raspberry on the barrel aged one somehow, which I feel like I wouldn't
What's
expect.
really interesting too is these wines change a lot in the beginning. It's like kids again. When they're real little, they change a lot. When they get older, they don't change as rapidly. And so when wines are really young like this, they change a lot.
Is this still raspberry, blackberry, blueberry, elderberry?
Yep. Yep.
Well, there's a difference. It's subtle.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a little bit more of an astringency, a dryness to the finish of the barrel one to me. But
I think the barrel one has smoothed out the elderberry. To me, the elderberry in this one is much more, I would say, rough, for lack of a better word. It's more bitey, and it seems to be mellowed out in the oak one.
That's what I was.
anybody get a smoky note?
I get a
on the
smoky.
barrel?
I get a smoky note.
Yeah, I got a smoky note.
I didn't get that. But I did get a difference in the finish. Very, very, very finish. When you just swallow it, I can't define it. I'm not putting words to it, but there is something different about the way it finishes. The last taste you get in your mouth before it goes down your throat.
It's interesting you bring up the elderberry difference, Chuck, because elderberry in barrels is a really unique wine. I still don't really understand what it does or how it does it, but it is basically inert to the flavors of oak. I've taken elderberry and put it into a new barrel and stuffed staves in the barrel. And you still don't taste oak.
In a brand new barrel?
In a brand new barrel.
Wow.
It's like bulletproof. I don't know what it is. It's weird. But it does benefit. It smooths out from being in a barrel.
Well, it's
But-
probably the oxidation more than the.
Yeah, either that. Yeah, it's the oxidation, the chemistry, the biochemistry that takes place in there. I'm not sure. Anyways, okay, so there's a 2-month difference, and now we're going to go to a 5-month difference. Of course, this is going to be a different wine, so you guys got to.
So you're not putting this into the oak barrel, so it has that vanilla, oaky kind of California flavor that you get in a California
I wouldn't worry
cab
about-
or something like that.
I wouldn't worry about
right?
rinsing it. Correct, Chuck. I'm not.
You're doing
looking-
this, and these were not new barrels, right?
This one has a
So-
little bit of sediment because it was taken off the bottom of the tank, so try not to stir it up much. It won't really affect the flavor, but I wouldn't worry about rinsing. I would just
Okay.
pour a little bit in
Okay.
as you go. Left glass will be the tank. Right glass will be the barrel. It's always fun to try these wines at different times too.
I just love
So-
that they come up in little beakers. I
So
feel
let me
so-
tell people too about
Science.
the rationale behind having some of this wine in tank and some of this in barrel. How come it's not all in barrels? Why wouldn't I put it all in barrels?
Well, I like to say when I make my spice cabinet analogy, that the chef uses the spice cabinet to alter the food in such a way that makes it better.
Right.
But in some cases, the chef chooses not to use the spice cabinet because some food tastes wonderful all by itself.
Right.
It doesn't need spicing.
And then this chef does both. And a lot of that's
Sure.
from reading about what they do in Chateauneuf, from that book you got. And a lot of Chateauneuf de Pape wines are made by putting a portion of that vintage into barrels, and a portion of it remains in a stainless steel or some
And then
tank,
you get a blending choice.
and then you blend it. And that really came out to me back in 2015, I guess it was. We were drinking 2013 of Red Scare, and we had done both Red Scare that was stuck in stainless its whole life, bottled that way, and Red Scare that was done in oak barrel, and that was bottled separately. And then people were saying, well, I love the fresh fruitiness of this stainless one, and I love the dark, brooding dryness of this barrel one. And then someone said, well, let's just try to put this together and see if we get the best of both worlds. So now what I do with a lot of the wines that I craft is to have a separate portion that then gets blended in with the barrels at the end to retain some of that fruitiness. The other thing is, as wines sit in a barrel, some of the wine evaporates out and you lose that wine. And then you need to fill the barrels back up every month or so to keep the wine from completely oxidizing. So having a tank of that wine gives you that opportunity to top it back off.
So it makes a lot of sense because really a lot of what you're trying to do is control, is have some control. You're not using additives. You're allowing Mother Nature, if you will, to grow the fruit. You're allowing the natural process of fermentation to take place. So there's all these natural processes that are moving along, and you always make an effort to try and not to alter them, but to not get in the way of them, and sort of help them get to the best place possible. So blending gives you a nuance of control that you could never have if you just put everything into a barrel. You get what the barrel delivers. That's it. You get what the barrel delivers, and you can take it out when you want, but you don't get any more control of that. But by this method, you get this enormous amount of very subtle control. And if there's anything I've learned, which has always been remarkable to me, is how the slightest variation,
It's huge.
can create an enormous difference in the outward presentation of a wine and how it's perceived on the nose and in the mouth. It's amazing to me. Some things when we've been doing blending trials and you've said, here, let me try a little of this, or you've just tweaked something so so small. And I go, wow, that's the magic right here.
Right.
So this gives you that enormous control.
I always thought it was baloney. When we first got into the wine, when we were tasting wines from different parts of the world, and you look on the back and it says it's, 60% Merlot and 40% Grenache or 20% Grenache and 5% Syrah and 1% Cinsault and 0.5%. I'm like, that's just baloney. No one's going to taste the difference between that. They had to put it in. But you can literally go with, one bottle in a tank that's got 4,000 bottles, and it changes it. And you wouldn't know it unless you tried them side by side, very focused. But the end result is a better tasting wine. And that's the key.
That's fantastic.
So this is kind of fun. I think, to me anyway, I can see a darkening of the one that's been in the barrels.
Oh, definitely. Significantly.
Yeah.
I really, really like this vintage. It is hot. This is about 15% alcohol.
Wow.
So this is a higher hitting wine than I've had in the past. It was constructed differently than I've never made it before. But to me, I've never had a Red Scare that tastes so together so quickly. This is only 6 months old, and it's already pulling itself nicely together, which is great.
I think
So this is only 5 months in oak.
And comparing this to the Lake House Red, I get the same experience. Flavor-wise, aromatically, the barrel-aged one is almost clarified. The flavors are more smooth and available, and the mouthfeel is really nice. The aromatics of the nose is great. On the stainless one has more fruitiness, but it's rougher.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have, things haven't kind of come together in it. I don't get any oak as a matter of vanillas or even that dryness. I mean, I get this, they both equally have tannins in it from the seeds and the skins and all that sort of stuff already. So I don't really feel like you're getting a lot other than what the barrel's doing as a matter of microoxygenation and evaporation. Right.
I love your comment about the clarity too, because I've noticed within a couple of weeks, and I have it in my mind now that I want to pass all my wine through barrels at least for a couple of weeks, even if it's going to live in stainless the rest of its life, like the rosé. Mm-hmm. I want to put it into barrels for 2 weeks and then pump it back out into tank because it changes. Yeah. In a couple of weeks, it comes together and it clarifies and everything harmonizes. And it's like, well, how did that happen? It didn't happen over in the tank. Why not? Right. It's got the same biochemistry there, but this stuff just comes together in the barrel. It's amazing.
I wonder what the chemistry is about that. I wonder if you could find out. There must be somebody.
I don't know. Clark Smith's got his whole cascading rigmarole from the stuff in France. It's a lot of heavy duty biochemistry. There are a lot of people that know in some detail about how this all works.
Phil.
In Cabernet.
Phil.
We do have a couple of questions. One quick one from Kathy, wondering when you're talking about the elderberry, what's the longest that you've had elderberry aging in a barrel? I know what we have on the shelves now is about 2 years.
Yeah, it's usually about 2 years. Mostly by then, it's I need the barrel for other wine. But it doesn't seem, it gains the most from a barrel in the beginning of its life. So right after fermentation for the next 6, 8, 9, 12 months, it seems to change it a lot. After that, they don't
Slows
evolve
down.
that much more. I did go out 4 years on a barrel of 3 Honey Gold. That was
Wow.
I was in 2014, bottled in 2018.
Wow.
Wow. The other question, Matt was wondering if you could cover stainless steel and its effect on acidity.
On acidity?
Yeah. Or just, I guess, its effect in general, but he was wondering specifically about wine acidity.
Well, stainless steel is inert, isn't it?
Yeah, it's inert. It's impermeable. It's just inert. It's like glass, so it's not going to influence it in any way that I know of. If you had a cement tank, that would influence the wine. And I don't know, in a barrel with some of the gallic tannins or various things that are in wood and some of the sugars from the toasting of the oak, if that affects the acidity. The acidity is a sort of an open, it's a very critical part of wine, and some people talk about that in terms of total acid levels or the pH level or the types of acids that are in the wine.
That was
Because all
fascinating.
three of those things are really critical to what the end product is.
That was one of the fascinating things that I learned from watching Joe Fiola's presentation at EWE, and he listed the various types of acid that exists in the different fruits, and they're widely different. There's 3 or 4 different acids that occur across the fruit world, and some have more or less than others. Some have none of some and more of others, and it's really fascinating.
And I didn't understand too. He said there's no tartaric acid, which is the acid that's typically in wine grapes. But when I do paper chromatography to see the amount of malic and tartaric and lactic acid,
You get tartaric acid?
I get tartaric acid.
You ought to ask him.
I will. I just haven't. There's sometimes where it's not there, and I have that. I think black raspberries or elderberries are completely void of tartar. But of all the other ones, blueberries, they have tartaric acid.
That'd be a great question for him.
Yeah, that would be a great
see.
question.
All right, how are we doing here?
I get
Good?
the difference between the two in body more than anything else.
So how does the body differ?
It's heavier. It's got more body.
The barrel.
Yeah, the barrel. And I was trying to see how they react differently when I swirl them, the legs and the tiers, and they're different. They're responding differently to the side of the glass. But it's deeper in color. And I think heavier in body, and so it provides a better mouthfeel as a result of having more body. And that's one of the greatest challenges. I mean, all along you have struggled from the very beginning. Some of our very early fruit wines, mouthfeel was one of the hardest things that you really had to tackle.
That is the whole challenge. Always, it's easy to make a fruity wine.
Yeah,
Light and fruity. But it's harder to build, especially if it's dry. I mean, most fruit wines are back sweetened in part to balance the bright acidity that you get from
sweetness
berries,
body.
but then to build body in the wine.
And that's one of the reasons people do use sweetness, because they, yes, they want a sweeter wine, but also it gives that big, full mouthfeel.
This should go in the left glass. You don't need to clean again. This should overpower it.
Can I just say this Red Scare is going to be
The best ever.
up there with the thank you, Chuck. You summed it right up. Best ever. It's really good.
I really love the way it's coming along. And it was a wild construction to put that together.
I'm sure Matt's getting all excited. How long does he have to wait?
He probably wants a barrel.
Right.
There's 8 barrels of it, Matt, just so you know.
Oh, good. How long before we get to see this in the tasting room?
2 years at least.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there another
Sorry.
round before it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still have the 20.
Yeah.
20 still in barrels.
Yeah, because it's 19
That's going to be,
is what
that'll
we
be
have right
bottled
now.
soon though.
Okay.
But I wanted a smaller time window.
Well,
That's why I chose that.
So, I mean, 19 only came out in
19 's just out
February.
right now. Right.
And 19's the best so far.
well, they're
So
just getting
just-
better and
it's
better.
just
I say this
getting
all the
better and
time.
better every
Ken
year.
is mastering, the nuance of these wines. you've been doing this for 15 years now, and every year you're applying 2, 3, 4 different experiments or approaches to how to handle the fruit, how to handle the yeast, how to handle, and combining those each year, your learning is just growing exponentially. And I think your understanding, you're gaining a deeper and deeper understanding of what it is you're doing. So when in the past, you'd have to do something and see what happens.
Right. Before I had a couple hundred hours at it, now I have a couple thousand hours.
Right. So it's really cool. And Matt, if you do come by, never fear. If Ken and I are here, you will have an opportunity to taste some out of the barrel. How's that?
Oh yeah, of course, Matt.
Matt thinks 2017 was the best.
Well, 2017, you also remember, is 5 years old.
It's aging, yeah.
And Red Scare changes beautifully with age. I think of all the wines that you produce, the one that ages the best
is
and
Red
that
Scare.
Changes in the most meaningful and positive ways.
Did you do this?
Is Red Scare. Did not. This
Stainless.
is stainless. Oh, I'm behind here.
Your mouth is flapping and you're not drinking.
Quick question: how many bottles in a
I thought it
barrel?
was a drinking show.
About
Of 750 milliliter bottles, around 280 to 300 bottles in a standard wine barrel. 25 cases or so.
Oh, no, isn't that cool? Look at that, Marika. You feel like a scientist when
such
you're
a
working
scientist. Especially when
you
you
say
get
we
into
should rinse
beakers
those?
like this, I feel
No, I
like
wouldn't rinse.
not just scientist. I feel like more of like an alchemist when you get this shape.
Or an alcoholic. I mean,
Alka something or other.
alka something.
Out of something. Like this seems more like potions than chemicals.
Yes.
Yeah, it is very potent. Yeah.
All right, so what are we drinking? What is this?
Hermitage.
So this is the 2020 Hermitage,
Oh,
just still in barrel and still working its way.
Talk about improvements. Oh my God.
This is the first Hermitage that's tasted this good in the beginning.
Imagine what's
Right
gonna taste
out
in
of
2 years.
Yeah, I know. I don't even know where
You're
it's
going to
gonna
release
go.
this this is 2020?
This is still in barrel.
Right.
So this
So
is
how
a couple
long-
years
23?
out.
How long has this
24?
been in barrel? Or this one has been?
So this one has been in barrel 11 months.
Oh my God.
So the one on the left is the tank, and they were the exact same wine that went into barrels that's in the tank. And
God.
this, to me, seems quite different between the two.
Did you put this in newer oak?
This is in our original barrels.
Day one.
American oak barrels.
American oak barrels,
From
used
that we
1,000
had in
times.
Bob's basement. The first 2 barrels we
Wow.
ever bought, barrel 1 and barrel 2. They have got to be neutral.
Yeah.
They've had 15 wines through them.
Oak staves?
Yes. No oak staves.
And no oak
Yet
staves?
you still get some oakiness.
Yeah, I get okay. I almost get some vanilla. I get that sweetness.
Oh my God.
so is this? Did you blend this before barrel? Because
Correct.
current
So this got
what we have now, you barrel aged the 4 different fruits, right?
what do we have right now? 18?
18.
So 18 was still made by aging them all separately and then
Okay.
blending and then bottling.
Yeah, good, because that's what I've been telling people at the taste bar.
19, can't remember how 19 was done. As you might imagine, there's 3 or 4 years of every vintage and 30 different vintages happening. So trying to keep it all straight as
that's
to what
okay.
happened
That's
between here and that is
I'm
is
glad
a
I don't
little-
have your job.
It's a little confusing at times. But this one was blended early on, and I like the integration of the flavors that I get by blending early on. So my current
Blended during
Hermitage.
fermentation?
this was soon after fermentation.
Okay.
So still going through mallow.
So let me just talk about this for a second for clarification for everybody,
Yeah.
because this is important. I think there's lots of different approaches that we've taken over the years that Ken has taken with each of these wines. Some of which we used to take each of the wines and ferment them separately, age them in barrels separately, and blend them right before bottling, which was often the case with Hermitage.
That's like watercolor. You lay yellow,
Yeah.
lay red, lay pink,
And then you get a lot of control, right?
Right.
But then also important, as Ken has learned over the years, that things that ferment together also change together
They
in
behave
different
differently.
ways. They
Yeah.
behave differently. So there's been a lot of experimentation, which has been really fun to watch. Sometimes going back and forth, where sometimes you'll ferment fruits separately, blend after, and then ferment fruits together, and blend after. And then in the next year, you might choose to ferment 2 or 3 together and one with something else.
That's what I keep doing.
And
That's
so
what I
it's
keep.
constant evolution, which is, again, back to what I was saying. You try something new. You're putting a new twist on everything every year. And all of these subtle little changes make a world of difference because every wine is getting better every year.
I'm glad it's working because it's scary at times when I throw out. I've got something that works pretty well. I like the current Red Scare. I like a lot, and then I go ahead and change it up because, like I said early on, coming from the brewing world, you make an ale. 3 weeks later, you're drinking it, and if you want to have a little more hops or a little more barley, well, you make another batch. And off it goes. But with this, I don't really know what this is going to taste like for another 5 years. So I've got to experiment massively along the way to try all these things and just see what works. So this is a blend. Unfortunately, the worst part about this is the smallest batch of Hermitage I've ever made.
Wow.
And it turned out really, really nice. But so it goes. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah,
Well, it's access to fruit, right? I mean, this is about access to fruit.
I don't know what it was. There's always too many.
Well, that's a variable.
Sometimes
Whether
it
this was
is.
or
Sometimes
not,
it's
but-
fruit. Sometimes it's space. Sometimes it's cash flow. It's all a wide variety of.
Sure.
Well, especially I think with something like Hermitage because it's 4 different fruits, right? Blackberry, blueberry, elderberry, blackcurrant. So you have to have the right ratios of all of those. If you're short on one, it doesn't matter if you have plenty of blueberries.
Right.
If you don't have enough blackcurrant to make the ratio that you want, it doesn't matter how many blueberries you have.
Isn't this got good grip?
Yeah,
That's important.
Red wine.
And it is a challenge for us every year. We struggle with many of the fruits that we have. Mother Nature delivers more or less fruit every year. And there are times when we can easily procure the right amount of fruits. And there are other times that we're barely able to find the basic resources. So it's a challenge. I mean, it's interesting. We have an advantage, out in California. If you own a winery, you own your grapes and you grow them. And if Mother Nature doesn't serve you well, you just don't make wine. But at least we have the good fortune of if one blueberry farmer or one strawberry farmer doesn't make hay or strawberries, if you will, then we can find other farmers. Sometimes not.
Or we adapt and make something different. Like isn't that partly why Winnipesaukee Rosé became because we didn't have a lot of crab apples.
It was a good news, bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good news.
Ken, I got good news, bad news and good news.
And
What you want
that
first?
forced creativity is sometimes a good
Forced
thing.
creativity.
Kathy made the good point too that, even if Mother Nature is cooperative, the fruit is different every year too.
Absolutely. That's a very good
It's
point.
not just about volume, it's about
And one of the
fruit
things
itself
that
can change.
we hooked on early on in this idea, this concept for the winery, for the wines that we make, was that when it's a good year for peaches, make a lot of peach wine. When it's a good year for apples, make a lot of apple wine. So what is growing really well at that time, go with it. If we just have a peach orchard and we don't have a good year, we don't make much peach wine. And just like you said, if you've got a vineyard and you don't get many grapes, you don't have much of a vintage that year.
Yeah.
But we can jump and increase stuff depending on what's available and the quality of what's available.
Right.
And that can be, I feel like that can be both good and bad because it's fun because it means, we might come up with something new that we're forced to, but then we've been around long enough that we have our lineup of wines. And if one year there's a terrible strawberry crop and God forbid we can't make strawberry rhubarb, we'd have a riot out front,
and that's
But people are also always really excited when we come up with something new, whether it was by our choice or not. Coming up with something new is always exciting anyway. So it's
It would be rhubarb.
good. Yeah. Just
Rhubarb
straight
cranberry.
so that's
Whatever Ken could get his hands on.
that's an important point. Is that a lot of people come and say, well, how do you make the same wine every year? How do you make the same wine? And it's really important to note, first of all, that you don't. The wine is different every year. And you know what? That's the way it is in the grape world too.
It is.
There are good vintages and there are not so, it's not about good and bad. There are vintages that winemakers prefer over other vintages because they feel like the magic happened in the vineyard that year and they got to make a better wine because of it. That doesn't mean that the year before was a bad wine. It just means it doesn't have all of the wonderful characteristics that winemaker was looking to bring into that wine.
Right.
And the other thing that so often comes to the tasting bar with our guests at the tasting bar is people talk about, what's your favorite wine? And so many people in the wine world have a favorite brand or a favorite wine or a favorite grape. And I really just urge people to stop that behavior. It's not a good behavior, and I'm susceptible to it too. So like we talked about my
IPA lab?
down the spiral of IPAs, where I was drinking for like a year or 2 years was just IPAs, and it's not a good place to be. And I was missing out on a huge wealth of great tasting, wonderful beers from all different categories. And the same goes for wine. And don't have a favorite, because you're never going to have that again. If you find you have a favorite cab, that cab isn't going to be that cab next year. It's going to be different. And now there is an exception. There is an exception, and this is important too. For wineries that make wine at scale that can allow them to put a wine on the shelf in every supermarket in America, those wines are going to taste the same every year.
Especially the ones that are big
Right.
blends, right?
Because they're made by science. They're made by chemistry. You can't take that volume of wine and influence it in the level of craft that Ken is influencing the wines at a scale large enough to serve every supermarket in America. And so those are made by chemists. They're coming up with the right balance of flavors and additives to create the same flavor every year, just like we do in a lot of our processed food. So I take that back. If you want to drink mass-marketed wines that are on the shelf in every supermarket, then yes, find your favorite brand, and you will be happy to find that every year, and it'll taste almost the same. But your depth of knowledge and understanding of your wine is going to go down, because there is so much to discover if you really dig deeper.
It seems interesting that it seems to be human nature that we want to identify with something. Bob's an IPA guy.
I drink cabs.
I drink
People say it all
cabs.
the time.
And I've never really understood that, because there's so many great flavors out there to attach yourself to one thing because it's like a safe space or something like that. Well, that's a beer, an IPA.
It is.
Now I know why they call it a safe space. Right. It makes sense to me now. I think I agree with your assessment. I think in wine particularly, if you come in for a wine tasting, don't try everything, right? That's what you're there to do, not to try to find something that tastes like something else that you like. But we're so easily programmed into this wanting that thing that we're familiar with. It's a mystery to me in this having this sort of creative.
How McDonald's grew.
Yes, I guess we were trained. We were trained.
People want the same thing. It's safe.
It's safe.
It's going to taste the same, and a lot of people like that. But a lot of people like something new and different. It's a risk. There's a risk factor. You may go in. This is your opportunity to eat or drink. You go off to that place. You walk down the hallway. You go in. You don't really understand the menu. You order something, and it's not really enjoyable, and you go away. And so that's it.
Go back to McDonald's.
Most of the time, it's like, wow. I've never had that before.
Yeah,
it's extremely memorable, really rewarding.
Yeah,
I think the answer to that is a couple of things, Chuck. And one of the most people are followers. It's easy to be a follower. If somebody else comes up with a good idea and you follow it, then it's safe. Somebody else has already judged that to be a good thing, and you can safely go down the road of that thing and feel like you're comfortable in a good safe space. And the other thing is, Ken mentions this all the time, marketers. Marketers' job is to convince you that this is the next greatest thing. And who wouldn't want the next greatest thing?
Right.
And once the whole world is on board with the next greatest thing, then you have this, everybody wants that Cabernet from Napa or whatever it is.
Or I feel like even if it's not a new thing, like you talk about, I'm a cab drinker, but the like Chardonnay has become, it's part of this whole like rosé all day or like wine mom culture.
It's the number one selling white wine in America.
It's become like a thing in there. It's in pop culture. It's in movies. It's in T-shirts and tumblers and
marketing.
They want to keep it that
marketing.
way.
Yeah, it's.
So
there's songs about Chardonnay and just
the three most popular grapes that make up, I think, somewhere between 90 or 95% of all the wine sold in the world is Merlot, Chardonnay, and Cabernet Sauvignon. Those three grapes make up almost all the wine sold. And that is not because the greatest wine in the world is made from those 3 grapes, because that is absolutely not
That's
the truth.
what the market.
They make great wines, but there are some of the most amazing wines I've had don't have any of those grapes in them. So it's not the truth.
Right.
But marketers have convinced the world that that's where we need to be, and it's a safe space.
And once you know,
Jesus.
that's it,
How we doing on
Chuck
time?
Lance's watch. We are down to the wire. So
I have
quick-
some
We have one
really,
more wine
I
here.
have some really brilliant
Here.
comments to make about this, but I'm going to save it for another show.
What? No, come on.
No. We've got to press
No,
on.
come
This is stainless. This one's
Yes.
So
stainless.
while you're pouring, make a
well, I
comment.
can't.
Yeah.
Tell us
Or-
about Hermitage.
So this is stainless.
I want to hear what you have to say about Hermitage. You can't just.
No.
I have a
Stay
whole bunch to
tuned,
say, but I'm not
folks.
going to
Same
say.
bat channel. Same
Oh, is this a
bat
new
time.
thing? Are you marketing now?
Yes, that's right.
You're creating a cliffhanger?
That's a
Jesus.
Okay, no, I'll spill the beans. All right,
Thank
so
you.
for that one, compared
Yes.
to the first one that we had of the Lake House Red, is that they were combined. I think they had the combination of things that would come together and make the barrel-aged one that has that sweetness, that whatever you got out of that barrel, which is crazy.
It's almost like a sherry.
it's
There's a sweetness to it.
It's almost like you've got vanillas and that's that sort of sweet vanilla thing without the vanilla, which
Right.
who knows what that is. But it was flattened out. It didn't have the same fruity character that you had from the stainless steel. And together, I think it's a perfect marriage. But as opposed to the first one, which was the elderberry was much more on the nose. It was rougher and it mellowed out in the barrel. In this case, initially you didn't have that. The flavors came together really well in the stainless.
So, in other words, you're saying that the tank, it's critical to have the tank to make the Hermitage a better wine.
Correct. The blending.
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's what you've been preaching that since you read that book on Chateauneuf de Pape.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do there. But I agree.
Proof is in the glass,
It's-
right?
it's-
In the chemistry of
And you wouldn't know if you just
chemistry set of the taste
stuck
buds.
it all in the barrel.
Right.
And been done with it.
So this next wine, to move
I
right
love that we're
along,
finishing
this
with this.
this is a great finish to the night. And if anybody out there wants to know, the most obvious way, if you have any confusion about what the difference is between barrel and not barrel aged, try the deep
Yeah.
blue and the deep
This-
blue reserve side by side. It's night and day.
This is, as a young wine drinker coming to Hermit Woods, this is what, to me, this is how I know what oak tastes like, is tasting the difference between deep blue and deep blue reserve, because it's such a different
Night and day.
flavor, and
Yeah, Hermetics.
it's
A lot
it's
of
just-
it,
it's
however,
so different, and it's
a lot of it, however, it's a good point. They're much different wines, but a lot of this is not so much oak as it is oxidation.
It
And-
comes from the oak.
Well, it comes from the container. We could probably do the same thing in a cement tank
Oh,
or a
interesting.
porous plastic tank, but it is because it was in an oak barrel. But a lot of what these unique flavors that come out in the Deep Blue Reserve have to do with oxidation more than the oak flavors.
So
that
maybe
are
I just
there.
have the wrong percent,
Right.
because in my head, maybe because I know it's oak barrel aged.
Yeah.
To me, Deep Blue Reserve, it tastes woody somehow, but maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know.
It's one of the things you need to know about Deep Blue Reserve that's different from this whole thing we've been talking about.
Yeah, this is a whole nother story.
All the other wines that he ages in barrels, he tops off and minimizes the excess oxygen that's in the barrel. With Deep Blue Reserve, he's not, thanks to Chuck,
Oh,
he's not
gotcha.
topping off.
That's true. Didn't this come around after a deep blue bottle just
Sat in
sat
the
in
fridge.
Chuck's fridge for?
half empty
Exactly.
for
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 6
months
months,
and
or
months and
whatever it
months.
was. The story changes all the time. But
yeah. It was 6 years, I think.
6
6
years.
years.
Yeah.
Six something.
Was I even there?
No, you weren't even there.
But that
I picked them. I picked all the Dogos.
Chuck did learn through that experiment, whether intentional or not.
Yeah,
It wasn't intentional. Okay, I'm never sure.
It wasn't intentional, but he.
but I wasn't opposed to it either.
Yeah.
Right. Then you tried it and you're like, Ken, you should mess around with oxidizing this.
So you had a half a bottle of Deep Blue in your
Yeah.
refrigerator for several months.
Yeah, right.
And so there was a lot of air in that bottle. It had just a plug on the top. It wasn't corked any longer.
Yeah, right.
And that's when he comes to Ken and he says, you got to make this wine with air. And so now the barrels aren't topped off with Deep Blue. Right. So the biggest factor that changes the character of this wine is the excess oxygen. But I think also important to note is the higher alcohol reduces oxidation. And the higher the alcohol, the less oxidation occurs. And this is 18%.
Yeah.
And also the higher sweetness minimizes, correct?
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
speaking from
It does. No, you know it. You got it.
So this wine is able to be exposed to more oxygen and take that oxygen in a different way than maybe another wine.
Yeah,
which is
I don't know.
sour.
It's just another one of these weird bulletproof things that I need to do a little one in my little barrel again and just leave it till it almost disappears. So there's just a cup left. It'll be the most amazing cup ever.
But
Probably.
most important of this is that I love both of these wines.
Right.
Yeah, they're different wines.
They're
right?
two different wines.
Yeah.
You would have them at two different times. This one is so fruity and
That's
you just
blueberry.
really just
Yeah.
screams wild blueberries.
Yeah.
It's just so wonderful.
Forget like your pie.
Forget the pie.
But yeah, the
Yeah.
is
Forget all the
more.
pie stuff. Just have a glass of this. I mean, you're done.
Yes, exactly. So this is a great way to end because I would say to any of you, if, and it is the barrel. You say it's the oxidation, but
It is.
It
It's
helps
both.
you understand one of
both.
the very key aspects of the barrel is that it gives Ken the opportunity to oxidate wine in a very slow and thoughtful way. Which how else do you do that? I mean, you can't just open up the top of the stainless steel tank and say,
Yeah, it
"Oh, let's
doesn't
throw
work.
some oxygen in there." It doesn't work. You can't. You have no control over that. But the barrel delivers oxygen very slowly over time.
Wait till I cook this stuff. That's a whole frontier that I'm so excited about. I don't even-
Can you do a mead?
Oh, we're cooking.
A mead
Yeah,
blueberry,
we're going to be
rich-
matterizing a whole bunch of stuff.
Maturized blueberry.
Oh, there's a lot of coming because you have
Mellow,
a tank
yeah.
downstairs of
Oh.
blueberry wine that's 28 bricks.
Not anymore. It's a lot of alcohol now.
Oh, I bet 14%,
sugar's gone.
15%. Yeah, but I'm dying to see where that.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
experiment
I haven't tasted it. It's a little jug. It's done its thing. I was supposed to rack it today. I didn't get to it. So hopefully tomorrow, but maybe
Yeah.
not.
Well, there's, like I said,
We'll
there's
get there.
experimentation going on every day, and we are truly at the end. We're an hour and 5 minutes, 6 minutes over. This has been fun. I've learned more in the last hour than I've learned on one of these shows in a long time. I hope everybody else out there feels the same way. We've had fun, and it's been great. You've had a couple good questions. So thank you all for joining us. Tune in next week for
Something
something to be talked
something
about
brilliant.
by the Hermits
To club wines?
and Marika.
Oh, yeah.
No, Club Wines is in 2 weeks. I want people to
weeks.
be able to have a chance to get their Club Wines. So we'll probably do Club Wines on the 18th.
Okay. That sounds good.
So that's good. We can tout that. On the 18th, we're going to do a wine tasting of the club wine. So all you club members out there who collect your wines prior to the 18th, you'll be able to join us in if you want. You join in on that tasting, and we'll come up with something fun for next week. I have no doubt. And thank you all for joining us again. This is so much fun. It's great. Thanks for being here every Monday. We will see you see you next week. Cheers. Yeah, double cheers,
Cheers.
everyone. I've never cheersed myself before, but that's pretty good.
Ringing the holidays.